Hi, my name is Stephen Martile from freedomeducation.ca. Welcome. So how to detach from your desired outcome. This is something I got a lot of experience with because there's the times when I get really attached. And you know the first sign of attachment, and let me just explain the difference between attachment and detachment. Attachment's when you are concerned or thinking about how you're going to get to your goal or the desired outcome. And detachment is like letting it go and not worrying so much about how it's going to happen. And here's the thing, when you're attached to something, what happens is that you're holding it and it's sort of like a security blanket because you're like, if I let it go, it's not going to come back. So you're not trusting that the universe or some divine good is going to give it back to you. So if you're holding on to it, it's coming from fear and scarcity, most likely, and not from love and desire. So that's where you really want to come from because that's how the divine works. It works through desire. So here's the thing. Here's a real good signal, very clear sign that you're attached. A real clear sign that you're attached is that if you're attached in multiple areas of your life. Because if you are, what happens is that the way that you're being starts to show up in other areas of your life. So let's say if you're attached in your relationships, maybe you're like in a conversation with someone, maybe it's someone that's close to you, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your coworkers, and you always find that you're always trying to be right. And you're like, no, this is the way it is, and like that's not the way it is, and like on the hockey game, I remember the other night I was watching the hockey game and I was like, oh man, that guy should have got a penalty. It wasn't a penalty. And then my wife's like, no, that was a penalty. So it's kind of like, okay, let it go. You know what? Maybe it was a penalty, and it's fine, right? It's totally fine. But if you're attached, you've got to be right. Okay? So if you've got to be right, you're attached. Well, where else are you attached? Well, maybe in the manifestation process. Because if you're attached to something, you're like, you're convinced it's got to happen this way. It's got to come to you. The how-to is going to show up that one way that you're attached to. And what happens is you're really limiting what's possible. You see, think about it. If you're convinced that the universe is only going to supply you with that, new car or that new business or that new soulmate in one way, then it's showing how righteous you are. Because there's an infinite number of ways that it can come to you. So being attached is kind of like this state, this vibration where you're got tunnel vision and you're looking for the one way that something is going to manifest and come to you. And so how do you get detached? Well, the way you get detached is to just let go of the ways that you think things are going to come to you. It's really letting go of your linear mind, your left brain. Because your left brain is where the logic comes from. It's like, oh, well, I could do this, and if I did this step and this step, then this would happen. And that's not the way it works. The way it works is by working on inspired action, doing what feels right to you in the moment. Because that's when you set yourself in the vibration and becoming aligned with the things to attract into your life. So here's like an example. Like just yesterday, right? I'm working on a new report, and I can't tell you about it yet, but I'm writing this report, and I've got a few pages written, and I got to a point where it's like I'm blocked. Writer's block, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take off. I'm going to play hockey. So I'm driving towards hockey, and I'm driving there or whatever. And all of a sudden I'm starting to get thoughts, about like, oh, well, maybe I could do this. And linear mind, totally like trying to figure out what the next step is, And it's like, oh, well, and I even start to get like a bit of a headache about it because it's like my brain working overtime. So I'm just like, stop. So I put some music on, and I'm kind of just like sitting there. I'm getting into the music. And then like I hear like, oh, but you could do this, and maybe this is the next thing. And I'm just like, stop. So just like kind of like, turn it right down, that volume right down, and then turn the music right up. And I was like, okay, there. And I started to get in the groove of the music again, and did that a few times, and eventually it just went away, right? The drive's about 15 minutes. And then I finally got to hockey, and I was in hockey mode, and I had a blast, and I totally forgot that I was even working on it. And then later this morning, I went to sit down and start writing, and I got a flood of ideas on what to add to the report. So it's kind of like you let go of what's going on, you move to the next moment, and then just understand and trust that the unconscious mind, universal mind, energy, divine, good, whatever you want to call it, the universe is going to supply you with the answers when you need them and what to do next. And you'll know what to do next because it will seem like the obvious next step. So That's the best way to get detached. I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Stephen Martile from freedomeducation.ca. Make sure to subscribe to my RSS feed if you want to get more cool videos like this. Love to hear from you. Again, my name is Stephen Martile, and we'll talk to you soon.